Welcome to the Unfading Truth Bible reading plan. Today we're reading Ezra chapter 6, verses 6 through 12. You need to take this pagan king's advice. Well, this passage is a letter written by the mighty King Darius of Persia, written to some of his regional governors, ordering them to support the Jewish exiles who had returned to Jerusalem in order to reconstruct the temple which Nebuchadnezzar had destroyed. We'll pick up the reading here in verse 6. Darius writes, "Now then, Tatnai, governor of Trans-Euphrates, and Shethar-Bozenai, and you other officials of that province, stay away from there." That is, stay away from where these Jewish people are going. "Do not interfere with the work on this temple of God. Let the governor of the Jews and the Jewish elders rebuild this house of God on its site. Moreover, I hereby decree what you are to do for these elders of the Jews in the construction of this house of God. Their expenses are to be fully paid out of the royal treasury, from the revenues of the Trans-Euphrates, so that the work will not stop. Whatever is needed, young bulls, rams, male lambs for the burnt offerings to the God of heaven, wheat, salt, wine, and all olive oil, as requested by the priests in Jerusalem, all of those things must be given them daily without fail, so that they may offer sacrifices pleasing to the God of heaven and pray for the well-being of the king and his sons. Furthermore, I decree that if anyone defies this edict, a beam is to be pulled from their house, and they are to be impaled upon it. And for this crime, their house is to be made a pile of rubble. May God, who has caused his name to dwell there, overthrow any king or people who lifts a hand to change this decree or to destroy this temple in Jerusalem. I, Darius, have decreed it. Let it be carried out with diligence." Well, let's take one last look here at article number 36 of the Belgian Confession. We've been talking about what the Bible has to say about the civil government. Everyone, regardless of status, condition, or rank, must be subject to the government and pay taxes, hold its representatives in honor and respect, and obey them in all things that are not in conflict with God's word, praying for them that the Lord may be willing to lead them in all their ways, and that we may live a peaceful and quiet life in all piety and decency. King Darius, who ruled the Persian Empire roughly 500 years before Christ, he's remembered as a leader who brought law and order in addition to instituting huge improvements in governmental efficiency and communications in the sprawling empire that he ruled over. In lots of ways, he made life better for his citizens. His support for his people is evident in this memo that he sent to his regional governors in charge of the region, which included Jerusalem. The first thing he tells them is to stay away and to not interfere in the work of the temple of God. Darius seems to understand that his government didn't need to have absolute control over every sphere of life. But he does order them to financially support the rebuilding project, not only with cash, but also with all of the animals and produce the Israelites would need to sustain daily sacrifices to the God of heaven. Darius finishes his memo with an order of protection for the temple project, which is quite harsh. Anybody interfering with it will be impaled upon the pieces of his own demolished house. The memo ends with Darius imploring God, who has caused his name to dwell there, to crush anyone who goes against the king's orders. It's the reason that Darius gives for his support of this project that attracts our attention today, not just so that they may offer sacrifices pleasing to the God of heaven, but Darius also wanted them to do this so that they could pray for the well-being of the king and his sons. King Darius could see that the rebuilding of the temple benefited him. Let's dig a little bit deeper. King Darius made a positive impact upon his world and supported this work to rebuild God's temple in Jerusalem, but historians don't consider him to have been a genuine believer in the one true and living God. Darius was an adherent of the dominant religion of his day, known as Zoroastrianism. But he also showed respect for the religions and customs of his subject, which helped him maintain stability in his diverse empire. Darius understood it was far better for his far-flung citizens to be praying to their gods for him rather than praying against him. So he was happy to support projects like the temple rebuilding. Pragmatically speaking, Darius's tolerant approach was immensely popular and successful, and both he and his subjects enjoyed a long time of peace and prosperity because of it. Now, certainly today's lesson is not to praise the benefits of unchecked religious tolerance. While it was beneficial in the short term for Darius, the Persian tolerance would backfire in the later years as their vast empire fragmented into disparate regional religious rebellions that caused its overall downfall. The point here today is that even an outright pagan king knew that he needed prayers from his people. And since you know what Darius didn't know, that the God of heaven sovereignly holds all things in his hands, well, how much more shouldn't you be praying to God for our own rulers, that the Lord may be willing to lead them in all their ways? Well, as you pray today, then, use the AAA prayer pattern. Begin your prayer by acknowledging who God is. Today, open your prayer to our Father, the God of heaven, who has caused his name to dwell in his temple. And remember, we are his temple. Then as you pray, go on to align your life with God's will. Pray for kings and all those in authority, that we may live peaceful and quiet lives in all godliness and holiness. That's quoting 1 Timothy chapter 2. Then you can ask God for what it is that you need. Remember, everything else that you hear today will fade away, but the word of the Lord is unfading truth.